Hey, it's Sean from Vinnie Mac, and today I want to talk about a new update to Google Local Services ads. And this update, like many updates Google has released this year, has a tendency to shake up Google Local Services ads a little bit. There's some pros and cons, and I kind of want to go over them with you in detail.
This isn't just any podcast. This is your secret weapon for dominating the market.
This is the Restoration Marketing Secrets Podcast, and this is your host, Sean McMean.
Really what this is about is Google changing how they handle Google Local Service ads disputing or getting credits back for calls. So as we all know, or we should know, that when a Google Local Service ad comes in, you need to, if you're answering that call or you're having somebody on your team, needs to have a heads up that that's a Google Local Service call. Just like you are diligent on answering and asking questions about the caller that is calling in, you need to do this even more in depth on Google Local Services ads so that you can ensure you get credits on calls that are not qualified or that are not calling for service that you provide in a specific area. So ask lots of questions up front. Are they the homeowner? Do they have insurance? What's the problem? And dig into those details. And then if you feel like they are a qualified person and you're going to put them on the schedule, then you ask for contact details. If you ask for those contact details, you are going to be charged for this lead. Just letting you know that, okay? So now let's talk about the changes that Google rolled out in August about disputing unqualified leads. So in the past, if you ran Google Local Services ads, you could, Google listens to these calls in their automated system, and they sometimes will credit calls automatically. And then you could also go in there in the past, you could dispute it, saying that it wasn't in your service area, it wasn't a service, it was a spam or repeat call, and Google would issue a credit back on that, right? And so now they've changed this to what's called a rating system, okay? And so they will, you no longer can go and dispute based on service, location, and all of those things. So it's important to make sure that when you set up your profile, you have all the correct services on there and all the correct locations that you're looking to do business in. So basically the goal of this is to streamline the credit process, right? On Google's side, what they found out, and this is an assumption on my end, is that it was a lot of work to manually go in and credit these back, and they wanted to automate this with some AI, right? And AI is great when it works well, and when it doesn't, again, it's a computer, and then we run into challenges there. So ultimately, what we've seen over the last few weeks, that it's not bad, but there are some challenges along the way, and so let's talk about this. So the new rating system, the way it works is that you are basically rating that this is a good lead or a bad lead, right? And so how satisfied you are with the lead. So if you're very satisfied with the lead, Google, you can mark that somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied, or dissatisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. And so if you are very dissatisfied, you can then basically dispute that, and they will review the lead. You're not always going to get the credit back, though, okay? So it's important to note that it's not a perfect process, and a lot of it is computer generated, right? And so it's a dramatic shift, though, from what they were doing before, where you could dispute based on all those categories. Now you're just saying, is this a qualified lead? Are you satisfied, unsatisfied, so on and so forth, right? So it's an easier system to manage, but it requires obviously some adjustments to the new rating system. And you can rate these within the Google Local Services ads platform on those leads, okay? The status of the leads when they come in, they are basically what they're doing is that there's a credited status or an in review status or charge status, right? And so if Google felt like that was a qualified lead based on what their AI listened to, you collected contact email details, and you scheduled that, they're going to charge that, right? You can still rate it, but they're going to charge that. If they felt that it was a spam call, it was a short call, it was contact details weren't collected on there, they will give you in a credited status. And then if you go in there and they feel like they need to look at it a little bit closer, there's a review status. And so it gives you a little bit more transparency into, charged, credited, and in review, right? And so there are some delays in the review status. So if you go in there and mark a lead as very dissatisfied with it, they're going to review it. And there's some delays. I think they're just trying to work out the kinks in the system. And there's it seems like a bit of a manual review process there. But, again, this is just rolling out, so I'm sure that it will get better. But, overall, the accuracy isn't too bad. It isn't too bad. And they are doing a pretty decent job as far as issuing those credits. And, some of the evaluations when you say it's dissatisfied, because it was a spam or a repeat caller or an active client of yours, and they just happened to look you up on hit Google Local Services again, they're not perfect with it. And so what we do for our clients is there's a manual process where we go to a contact we have with Google Local Services and say, look, here's all the documentation. This is an active client. It was a previous lead. We need to get a credit on this. Even though their AI didn't issue it or the review didn't issue it, there is a third step. And so you can do that to dispute those leads on a manual basis, but it is a very time-consuming process if it doesn't follow those things. Your best bet here is that you have a whisper on those phone calls that come in. So you have a tracking number set up on Google Local Service ads. And every time a Google Local Service ad comes in, you get a whisper to whoever's answering the call in your office, and it's a Google Local Service ad. And so then you're going to ask much more stringent questions. Like I said before, you're the homeowner. Do you have insurance policy? What does your policy cover? So, for instance, a flooded basement or a weather event or those sorts of things. Or, for some of our roofing clients, is it a situation that is that you can go out and do an inspection on, right? So make sure you vet those calls out way before you ask them their contact details. So you can certainly ask their name and then dig into it. And then you go into, if they're qualified, then you say, great, what's your phone number? What's your address? So on and so forth. And we'll get that appointment scheduled. So those are our tips. Google, again, is Google, and they will always change things. So just know that we're here to help you out and help guide you in that process. Don't be afraid of Google Local Services ads. They are one of the most effective return on investment ads platforms or lead sources out there right now. And so don't be afraid of it, but just be aware of the changes and take a look at our blog article that gives you screenshots and step-by-steps on how to handle this new dispute process and rating process that Google Local Services rolled out. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, you can always visit us at restorationmarketing.com, and we'll be there to answer any questions that you may have.
You've been listening to the Restoration Marketing Secrets Podcast. Sean's not here to just talk the talk. He's walked the walk. With a track record of helping over 70 damage restoration companies and engaging in over 500 conversations with industry owners, he's seen it all. From digital marketing triumphs to the most ingenious growth hacks, he's got the keys to the kingdom, and he's sharing them with you. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, for more, hit the website at restorationmarketing.com. See you next time on the Restoration Marketing Secrets Podcast.